Hey, what's going on, everyone? So, welcome to this Rokoko Animation Hour. I'm Sam. I'm the creative director for Rokoko, and in today's video, we're gonna basically be running through this Metahuman live streaming VTuber workflow that we got running. And as you can see, hopefully you agree with me that this is looking awesome. I actually initially didn't know if metahumans were going to be appropriate for live streaming because they're beefy and they're big and beautiful, characters. But after playing around with this and doing some tests and everything, I fully believe that the metahumans are a very viable option for doing this, and especially using the Rokoko, mocap tool. So this video, basically, we're going to go through this project file that I'm using, which will be available for free. You can download it in the description below, and we're going to open it up, see how I made it, maybe go through some tips and just tricks and ways that I handled things like locking my legs into place to make sure they weren't drifting and doing things like that. We're going to go through optimization. We're going to cover that first, actually, just, what I'm running, what I think you should be running, and how I set up the networking and all of that. But yeah, we're just going to basically go through this project file so that hopefully you can download it and either recreate it with other metahumans, or you can use it for whatever you want. It's free. The great thing about these metahumans that's, amazing is that they are free as long as you're using them in Unreal. Completely free. And this body, this Paragon character body that I'm using, is also completely free. It's available. It's Twin Blast from Paragon on the Epic Marketplace, and so you can go and download that, or you can use this project however you want. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First thing we're going to talk about is how I got this all set up, what I'm running hardware wise, and also go through networking a little bit and scene optimization a little bit. So, in terms of hardware, currently I'm wearing a Rokoko Smart Suit Pro, smart gloves, and I'm using our facial motion capture app, which is available. You can test it out for free. We have a 30-day free trial for the mocap, for the facial motion capture tools, and I'm running it off of an iPhone, which is actually sitting on my desk. You can see when I pull it away, the face will stop working. Hey, I'm back. But you don't have to wear it on your head. You could just have it on your desk if you were live streaming. I have it a few feet away from me, and it's picking up everything, just fine. I still have lots of detail, and I got my blanks, wink, wink. All works great, even from a distance. You can see it, right here in the bottom of the frame. It's just on my desk. So that's the Rokoko mocap side of things. In terms of my networking, what I am doing right now is I have an Ethernet cable plugged into my desktop PC that is running to the same Wi-Fi router that my suit is connected to. So I'm picking up the suit in Rokoko Studio. So I have Rokoko Studio open with my suit. It's actually right here. It's a little distracting because I did a couple other things to make sure that, you'll see the Rokoko character bouncing more than the metahuman because I've locked it. We'll get into what's happening there. Right now it's a little distracting. You can also see my feet are probably, even if I raise my feet up, it won't happen for the metahuman character because I've just locked it into place. But there's a couple things we've done there. So I have Rokoko Studio up and running. That is streaming, my mocap into Unreal, which I have open on this monitor right here. And that is what I'm then putting into OBS. And in Unreal, there's just a green screen plane behind my character. And I'm just keying that out in OBS. And the character is actually flipped. So, this is the character's right hand, even though it looks like the left hand in OBS. That's just because I wanted them both to be looking in on the screen for composition. I'm going to move this over just so it isn't distracting. But yeah, so that's what I have for networking, right? It's an Ethernet cable to my Wi-Fi router that's picking up all of this mocap stuff. If you were building a reel, you wanted to get into live streaming, make it as perfect as possible, I would actually recommend doing everything on your main PC computer on an offline router that is not connected to the internet at all. You would then pipe video from that computer to another computer that is connected to the internet, like using a capture card to get the video from the main computer doing all the mocap. You use a capture card, pipe that into a laptop or a tablet, and then have that computer putting everything on Twitch. So the goal with all of this, because the suit is runs off Wi-Fi, you want to be working in an offline environment if at all possible. Again, that's not what I'm doing. This computer is connected to the internet via this Ethernet cable, and so it's just that I made sure that nobody was online right now. And yeah, this works, but generally I recommend a completely offline solution because I think it's the most efficient. You might notice a little bit of delay. There is maybe a little bit of lag between Unreal and me. So if this was a problem, you can, in OBS, add a couple millisecond delay into the audio, and that would, that's what it is. It's a couple milliseconds. So you could fix that delay problem there because, there might be some lag. Continuing with the optimization track, what am I running in my PC? It's beefy, but it's not crazy. I think, if you're doing stuff like this, I think many people now maybe have access to the 90, 3080 range. I guess nobody does, but it will happen. I don't think that these metahumans are out of reach, actually, for most people, especially with a couple other optimization tools. Anyway, for this PC, I'm running an Intel Core i9, 3.5 gigahertz, 128 gigs of RAM, which is overkill for sure. Probably need 32. I don't know. It's a lot of RAM in this computer. I'm running an NVIDIA GTX 2080 Super. And that is also allowing me in Unreal to have access to the new DLSS settings. And that is fantastic because, as you can see, there's no real big quality loss in terms of what's happening in Unreal, but it's moving a lot faster, right? And I can even, let me zoom this character. This is an OBS, but you can tell, I have, it looks great. Fidelity is really good. There's not like a lot of noise or anything. And yeah, it works really well. And in that sense, in Unreal, what I have going on is, I have a very simple scene set up, and we'll look at it in a second, but I wanted this all to be moving fast, right? So it's not a scene with fire and like forest leaves blowing in the wind and, stuff. I think it might actually still work well if you were to do that, especially as we get into Unreal 5 and Nanite. Excuse me. But for now, I wanted to keep it clean and small. So I have nothing going on. I basically have a light source and a green screen plane, with a green material behind my character, and it's just my character. And so I'm trying to make it run as fast as I possibly can get it. And so that's just, I'm keeping my scene optimized. And this metahuman has the highest level of detail. I could turn the level of detail down on my scene and probably remove a little lag too. So it just depends on what you're trying to go with. But in general, right, we are trying to optimize everything down as much as possible. Let's jump into Unreal. I'm going to turn this character off so that we can take a look at everything. And yeah, we'll run through. Basically, I have a sitting blueprint set up essentially, and a standing blueprint. And the reason I needed to do that is because in Rokoko Studio, our motion capture works off of foot contact with the ground. So if you're sitting for long periods of time, things like this start to happen. You can see these legs. That doesn't look right? But I set up a blueprint in such a way that it's not picking up the legs for the sitting. And so if we even zoom out with our Unreal character, it looks a little odd, but the legs are not sitting, and I've just done I've locked the hips into place as well, and so that helps keep everything nice and clean. Doesn't have my legs flying around, flying off into space, because while our suit works fantastically while you're standing up, again, it's all based off foot contact. If you have your feet off the ground like I do in my little chair, you'll start getting errors like this, but you can prevent them in Unreal. So enough rambling. Let's jump into Unreal and take a look at this project, which again, you can download right now for free in the description below. Okay, let's jump into it. Okay, so this is what you will be greeted with. I've just made a copy, so your title of this project will be just Metahuman Rokoko VTuber. Mine's working because I've added a few things in mine. But yeah, this is what you'll be greeted with when you open up this free project file. And as you can see right away, what we have going on here, and I'll increase my camera speed a little bit, is, we have our character, and then we just have this green screen plane with green material applied to it sitting behind them, and then here is our camera, right? And so that's the setup, and this is what you are when you hit play. I'm basically full screening my editor window, and then I'm piping that display into OBS and keying that out, and we'll get into how you do that in OBS, but it's very simple. So right now the character, as you can see, is in its sitting position, and I want to go through these two different kind of blueprints that I've created. It's actually the same blueprint, but it's just different. You have to wire things in differently. But let's say that you wanted to get this working with your Rokoko motion capture right away. You open it up. I want to get it working. How do you do that? Well, the first thing that you're going to need to do is go to the body blueprint, because if you take a look at what's happening in the scene here, and we've done a couple other tutorials at this point about using a metahuman head on a non-metahuman body. The reason I did that is just because I assumed, and I don't know if it's true or not, that it might be less stressful on my machine if I was just using the head instead of the rest of the metahuman body, because they're strong, beefy characters, And the other thing is, the Paragon characters' hands are a little bit easier to get looking good, and that's for a variety of reasons that we won't really go into. I just thought it was easier to use the Paragon characters' hands, and they just look cooler, right? It's like cooler than the sweater. Metahumans are in alpha. They don't have a lot of clothing options, so I just thought this kind of looked cooler. You can absolutely get the hands working for this with a metahuman, but it just might take some extra tweaking. So, right, I've got my Paragon character here, and then I've parented my metahuman head, which I've isolated in the blueprints, to that character's head bone, right? So that it will follow. If we move this Paragon character, right, the head will follow. And the way that you can parent things, if you had a gun that you wanted to parent to the hand of the metahuman, if I unparent this BP Yuri, which is the metahuman blueprint name, so now it's not on there, right? If I move my Twin Blast character, the head will not be on there. But if you want to parent it, you just drag that blueprint or actor, whatever, in your outliner onto the skeleton you're trying to parent it to. So I just dragged it onto this Twin Blast thing, and then I would hit, type in head, search for the head bone, and now it's parented to the head bone, right? And so whatever motions the body is making, the head will follow along. And again, you can check out our other tutorials for more info on how we went ahead and set all that up. So, right, let's say you open this up and you want to get your Rokoko suit working. Well, currently it's set up for my suit. So it has my name on the Rokoko actor profile that I'm using in Rokoko Studio. Because remember, you're going to be having your live suit all set up. It's unplugged right now for me, but with this actor profile, Sam is mine, right here, Sam. And so you're going to need to change the blueprints in here to reflect what your name is and your actor profile name is in Rokoko Studio, right? So the way that you would do that is you would just go to this Twin Blast. We're looking for this bodies blueprint. And if you go into Paragon Twin Blast, characters, heroes, Twin Blast, here is the blueprint right here, Twin Blast blueprint. You could also just search for it, you know, and you could pull it up. Let's open this up. And so what we've done is this was the original blueprint, and I've kind of just amended on here and I'll shrink this guy to make sure I'm not blocking anything. Hopefully I didn't just block anything. But if you need to find out where we were just going, it was right content, Paragon Twin Blast, characters, heroes, Twin Blast. But yeah, so this is our standard kind of node tree for Rokoko motion capture, right? If you watch any of our other tutorials for live streaming mocap into Unreal, it's going to be the same kind of thing that you find here. However, I have two setups kind of running. One is the standing setup, so that's this guy right here. And currently I have the sitting setup running, so that's all of these components down here. And what you're going to need to do to get yours working, your suit working, is go to this Rokoko body pose, and you can see right here it says Rokoko actor name, Sam. You can go in and just change this to, you know, test, whatever your Rokoko actor profile name is in Rokoko Studio. So that's the first thing you're going to need to do. Compile it, save it. Then what you would do is you would open up a live link. So window live link. And in Rokoko Studio, you would make sure that you had your live stream on and it was going out to Unreal Engine. So you can toggle this on and off. You want to make sure this is on. And again, if you don't have access to these plugins, we have a 30-day free trial, and then you can subscribe monthly to get access to these. And so you can test it out and see if you want to use them. But for this workflow, you do need to use them because we're live streaming mocap, and you need live stream plugins. And so you need to have this module turned on. You see that I'm streaming out to port 14045. You need that port number to match in Unreal Engine the port number of the Rokoko Studio, 14045. Rokoko receiver, excuse me, which is in your scene. And if you're building this all from scratch, when you download the Rokoko plugin, these show up, you know, that actor class shows up in here, Rokoko receiver right here. So that's in the scene. It's set to 14045. If that's all set up correctly, you can open up Live Link. When you hit source, you'll see this Rokoko Studio source, and then you get this option right here. You know, you get this this setup. It's showing, you know, that I have a data in Rokoko Studio, and that's what I'm seeing right here. So then the last thing you need to do to get it working is you would just go to this BP Yuri, and you would just make sure that this, if I cleared this, after you turn on Live Link, you should see these options here, and you would select the face, right? And that would be driving now the Metahuman face actor. Okay, so I just returned on my suit and everything, but let's say that you wanted to use this blueprint and in its sitting form, and that was how you were going to live stream out, right? So let's jump into Rokoko Studio. And you can see here, I've got everything turned on. If you need help setting up your suit and gloves and facial motion capture, you know, check out our YouTube channel. We have tons of tutorials about that. But you can see that I currently have treadmill mode turned on. So if let me open this and kind of give myself a little bit more room here. But if I stand up and walk around, my character is not moving, right? So, and the way that I did that is that I turned on treadmill mode up here under live filters. So you can see that I have treadmill turned on. If I turned on locomotion, and then I did a recalibration straight pose, and we do that right now. See, now I can move around. So this maybe would be the one that you would want to use if you were standing, right? But we're not standing, we're sitting. So again, I'm going to turn on my treadmill mode so I'm not moving around, and sit down in my chair. And here we go. Now my character isn't going to drift off into space because, as I said before, everything works off of foot contact with the ground. So as soon as I sit down and I start doing weird stuff with my legs, and I'm doing a long stream, and who knows if I can keep my feet touching the ground the entire time, it's useful to have treadmill mode turned on, and that way your character won't fly around. So now, this is all running. I have my live stream module turned on. At this point, I would just be able to hit play. And when I do that, obviously this is not, we want a camera, right? And the way that you get access to your camera that you have set up is you just hit eject. And if you hit eject, now I can go to perspective, and I can go to, my camera mid. I might need to adjust it for the focus or whatever. Click off here. Here we go. Connected, ready to go. And I can also go into close up. I just have these two little cameras set up. Close up. And I can go back to my mid. There we go. And so that is how you get the mocap set up and working. So if you want to just learn how to then use OBS, skip to the end of the tutorial, and I'll have, in the chapter markers or whatever, and I'll show you how to go through that process. Now we're going to walk through what exactly I'm doing to make sure that my legs are locked and they're not moving around no matter what is happening in Rokoko Studio. Because again, I'm not doing that with my foot. It's drifting because it doesn't know that it's in contact with the ground, and I don't want that to be happening in Unreal Studio, right? And I also don't want my my hips moving around. So I've done some things in the blueprint to fix that. So let's go through that. If we go back to my character's blueprint, there's a couple things happening. One is that usually when you load in this bone map override, and this is going to get a little technical and kind of assume that maybe you've watched some of our other streams or something and you kind of know a little bit about what's going on. We have a lot of tutorials on this stuff up on YouTube, so I encourage you to kind of start from the beginning and maybe not jump directly into this. But when you set up this blueprint, you need to input a bone list. And this bone list basically is identifying all the bones coming from Rokoko Studio that need to be matched with your character's bones. And so what I've done is, for the bone list that this sitting configuration is using, again, that's this configuration down here because of this pose asset that's in a sit. It doesn't have the legs filled out in it. And so that's meaning that it's basically not picking up any of my leg movement. It's just picking up everything from the spine up. And if we go into Rokoko content, you can see I have this Metahuman bone list sitting. If I open this up, you can see that actually if we go to right up leg, all these legs, so I didn't fill these out. I left these blank. And that means that it's not going to pull any of that information. Now, what I wanted to do initially is to also leave this hip bone blank, because I just wanted the hip to be locked into place and not move. If you do that, you'll get lots of crashes. So you can't do that. You have to put in the hip bone. So if you do have to put in the hip bone, which you do, what I did in this blueprint is I added this transform modify bone node right here in between everything. And what this is doing is this is replacing, you can see bone to modify pelvis, and this is replace existing with 0, 0, 0. That means that basically my bone is not translating through space at all. I could add another one of these and eliminate rotation, but if you leave rotation on, you can actually see that it's kind of nice if you're sitting in like a swivel chair, because you do want to rotate. You just don't want to translate. So I can still rotate around, but I'm just not translating. And that's because of this transform modify bone. Because in treadmill mode, you get this rocking. So you can see that I'm like moving up and down, and I don't want that. I like the rotation, but I don't like the actual transforming in space. So that's what this is doing in this blueprint that has a lot going on. So you'll also notice this pose asset. Again, if you have seen our stuff before, you know that you essentially need to put the metahumans come in an A pose, and you need to put them in a T pose in order for them to receive our mocap properly. In addition, what I've done with this pose asset is I've actually gone in and scaled down the head bone, which is still technically there. It's just really small, so that I can plop on the metahuman head onto this character and parent it. And again, we put out a tutorial for this. There will be a link in the description below if you want to know more. But if we check out that pose asset that I'm using, again, that's this pose asset. That one is right here, sitting. So this is how it normally looks, this character. If I double click this, you can see that I've posed this character into this position. So still a T pose for the arms, which is correct. But then I just wanted my character to always be sitting. So I moved the feet up into a sitting position. I know this is a lot and it's confusing. Put your questions in the comments below. But hopefully this kind of gives you a sense of what's going on behind the scenes here to get this all working. In terms of the metahuman head, I'm not going to go through how I isolated that because, again, we have tutorials about it. But you isolate the head using a pose asset to get rid of the neck and stuff, and then you plop it onto this body, and you have this character. Okay. So now I'm going to go through how you would switch to the standing position. So what you would do is in your blueprint for your Paragon character, the body blueprint here, I would go back to that blueprint, which is actually, it's open right here. And instead of having this sitting selection, I would just wire in this standing Twin Blast T-Pose selection. If I hit compile, you'll see that it's actually standing now, and I need to, yeah, here's a better look at what's going on. Whoop. Get that back into place. I'm gonna have to redo that. But if I jump back into, if I eject from this, yeah, so that's a T-pose, right? So as soon as I hit compile with that T-pose, that's what it gave me. Now what you would also need to do is change this bone list to this metahuman bone list instead of metahuman bone list sitting. And what that's going to do is give you back the leggies. So I hit compile. Oh, I got my legs back. So now everything is working there. And then what I would do is in Rokoko Studio, I would turn off treadmill mode, right? So let me turn off treadmill mode. I'll go back to locomotion mode. So I can move around now. I'm going to do a quick calibration straight pose. Oops. I acted too fast. Let me do that again. You know, there we go. Moving around, looking good. And now in Rokoko Studio, or in Unreal Engine, if I hit play, you know, now we've got our character looking good. And of course they are, you know, positioned oddly. So you go through and maybe you'd, you know, beforehand you'd position them down, you know, and now here we go. So standing, you know, I would frame, you know, I could be whatever in an environment or whatever, and this is how it's all working. So that's how you would switch on that blueprint to standing instead of the sitting. Boom. Yeah. Okay. So, again, that might be complicated, and I understand that it is. Put your questions in the comments below. We'll do our best to get to them, and then we'll have a more official workflow for all this once Metahumans have calmed down a little bit in their development. So how do I now... I'm going to switch this all back. Let's switch this all back. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to switch back into treadmill mode here because I like the sitting style more. I think it's better for live streaming or whatever. Go back to my character's blueprint. Change this guy back. Hit compile. Make sure to change the boneless, so I'm not getting that the feet anymore. Don't want those. So now again, it's just that, no feet. Even though I'm moving my feet around, they're not swinging. It's just my upper body. And there we go. And I can raise this up again a little bit. And now if I hit play, there we go. Okay. So how do we get this all working in OBS now? So I actually have OBS open right now. I'm recording this locally, right? But I can open up another instance of it. Launch anyway, because I want to show you how to get this all working. And so, of course, it goes into this crazy, let me turn off the display here so you can just see it's blank, right? So this is OBS. Amazing streaming software. It's what many people use. It's great. And so what I've been doing to get this to work is essentially once you have this all up and running, after you hit play, you'll hit eject, right? And that will let you go back and pilot cameras properly. And then what you can do now is, kind of get this camera into place, and then you can go hit F11 to go into full screen mode. And I'm going to do that actually. I'm going to bring that over to my other desktop. Close that so it's not distracting. And so this is on my other desktop. It's playing. It's in full screen mode. And so it's taking up the entire desktop with just that shot of my character with the green screen behind it. So now in OBS, how would I get that onto screen? So I would go and I would add a display capture. And I'm going to choose display 2. As you can see, this is the display. So this is my entire second display here. Hit OK. Display capture 2. And if you right click on this and go to filters, you can add a filter. And then if I go and hit plus color key, just hit OK, and it's already on green. If I pump up this similarity, it's going to key out that green screen. And so there you go. That's how I get, my character isolated. And, you can play with this a little bit and get it looking as best as you possibly can. But after you've done that, you can take that, that window that you have here. And if you hold down Alt, you can crop it. I'll just crop it a little bit. And there we go. Now I have this character that I can just throw in the bottom of my screen. And there you go. I can then take this out to Twitch or whatever, broadcasting this through OBS to YouTube Live, and I could have my VTuber ready to go. And, you could also just use the entire, if I go to filters and I turn off this chroma key, yes, color key, this could be a whole scene. This doesn't need to be just like a little person in the corner, right? You could be VTubing a whole scene that you've created using an environment and everything. It just kind of depends on what you are looking to do. There you go. That is how this whole project works. Hopefully this was educational and helpful. Again, I know it's a lot of information, but if you have worked with our motion capture workflow before, we have lots of tutorials on our YouTube channel that cover all this stuff in kind of more detail. This is just to go through and kind of show you the possibilities for using the Metahumans as a VTuber, type setup, and just as proof of concept. So download the project file. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Put questions in the comments below. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, and there'll be lots more Metahuman, VTuber content coming soon. We want to do some cool stuff with this, and so yeah, stay tuned for more. Okay, thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.